Hello and welcome to Writing Emails Like a Pro for Project Directors. My name is Nathy Montello and I'm very happy to have you here today. A little bit about me. I think we've gotten to know each other from the intro videos already. I'm from Philadelphia and I've had the great pleasure of working with many companies throughout the Central Valley in Costa Rica, working on different skills related to emailing, to outreaching to clients, and just in general to improving English for communicating with the client. We're going to go through today the parts of the email that apply to you as a project director. And then, so we're also going to look at introducing yourself, introducing your team, and troubleshooting. And then also just have that nice little refresher of grammar and vocabulary that's going to help us out when we're going ahead and making that contact with the customer. So here's a sample letter that you could use. If you go in on our Jamboard, you can just zoom in a bit. I like this a lot, but we're going to use this as a basis. This is not done. So it's a sample letter that you might choose to work from, or you might choose your own that you might go and custom tailor as we go step by step through this video, or you could use this one. So we're going to think about, like, what do you think before we start could be changed here? Do you think that maybe the person's introduction isn't really as solid as it could be? What do we think about these goals right here? One thing I want to point out first off the bat is this person did not introduce their team. And so that's kind of a problem as well. So they have our team is ready to go, but they don't really have a whole lot of information about the person. So what else could we add to this to make it a little bit better when we're reaching out to that client, give that full that impression that we're hoping to? But first, it starts with your subject line and your greeting. So we're going to keep it simple, positive, and include the essential information. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and think up what would be the subject line that you would most use when you're reaching out to your clients. So imagine you're making that first contact with the client. How are you going to grab their attention from the moment they look at your inbox? Something short, positive, and then also gives them the info so they know what's coming. So I might say, congratulations on your steps to English fluency, or congratulations on your decision to start classes, or introduction, nice to meet you from your teacher, something along those lines. Now, mine might be a little bit more casual because I work in education. So you want to also keep in mind the culture of your company, the culture of your industry. So you have a little space right here to kind of try that out. Go ahead and feel free to type your own so you'll have it for later if you don't want to do so in your own email. Now, we're going to introduce ourselves. So when we introduce ourselves, I'd like to introduce my philosophy, my role, and my skill set. Some questions that we're going to ask ourselves, like, how do I lead? What type of work culture do you hope to inspire? Think about how you add value. This is the big one, down to your verbs. You even want your verbs to reflect how it's going to help the client and highlighting your passion. Okay, so when we look at these, there's a couple of videos that I recommended in the intro videos and at the end of this presentation where they really talk about why that's so important, because you're giving the client an idea of who you are and why you work so hard for them. So, for example, what's important to me, my main objective and my values. Now, some phrases for this. My biggest concern is, I always like to focus, and so I value something above everything else, or above everything. I value communication above everything else. Introducing your team. Now, if this is an email where you're going to introduce your team, you want to praise them, right? And so you're going to really highlight not just what's their experience, where did they go to school, but how do they add, right? The same thing that you're doing with yourself when you introduce yourself. So you have some examples here. Who's on your team and what are their accomplishments? So a couple of phrases here, like you have the project manager and I describe them, but I'm not really saying, oh, he has a master's degree, I can, but you want to add more than just that. So I really wanted to emphasize that. And look, he's consistently devised ways for our clients to save hours of oversight time with the small implementation of cutting-edge systems. Now I know this person. I know that this Steve is somebody that really looks to make things more efficient. So now I'm looking forward to that. I don't just know about his education and how long he's worked in the field. Now I have a real idea of something he's contributed to the team. Okay, so for all of these, I would definitely recommend really not just putting education, though we'll get to that in a second, but also putting something about really what's the person's major contribution. What can your client expect from them? Right here too, I might put a line to finish, like I'll know you'll enjoy working with our project manager, Lisa Colinare, as much as I have. So I'm really giving that endorsement, and I'm really passing the person to you, introducing them to you and saying, hey, they're ready to go for you. And I'm really excited. I know you're going to have the same amazing experience that I have working with this person. Get your client excited. Now, the part that's not so exciting is when we have to troubleshoot. So when there's a problem, that can get tricky, and it can get even trickier when you're doing this in another language. That's definitely true. So when we're making polite requests or responding, you're going to use modals and indirect questions. So for example, I might say, you know, would it be okay if I sent this over to you? Would you like me to reach out to someone else on your team? Could we wait until tomorrow for the meeting? Do you have a deadline? Could we push the meeting back? Now, a couple of things, you want to use these correctly. So I have on here this visual, which I really like. It gives you an idea. We have might. It might happen. It's really shaky. So I might send it tonight. That's not something you want to say to a client because it sounds like, oh, maybe. May, it's a little bit more solid. We may have time at the end of the day. I'll reach out to you if we're able to schedule something, okay? A little bit more solid. Could is referring to ability. So if I say we could meet tomorrow, we have the ability. If I say we should meet tomorrow, that's a suggestion. That's my value reflected in it. What do I mean by that, my values? Well, I think from my perspective that we should meet, and so I'm pushing that opinion on you, okay? This is like using debería in Spanish, okay? Now, when you say would, I'm putting myself in your place. Oh, what do you need? Oh, I would do this to solve that problem, okay? And so that's like using iría, the ending on the verb. I will, that's a definite. I'm telling you it's going to happen. And a must. And now when I use must, I want to be careful. I might use this with my team. I might use this about something I feel strongly with, but I may not say you must. No, not with my clients. That's a little bit too strong. But I might say we must consider the market trends. That's appropriate because we're really putting that energy. And if I've included everyone in it, it doesn't seem so harsh. If I say like, you must, that one, no, okay? But we must is okay as a team. I kind of take the pressure off. Okay, so feel free to use these, your modals, when you want to make some polite requests, or if you have someone that's kind of irritated, these are, oh, well, we should have everything done by tomorrow. Let me just check in with the team. We could expedite everything, but it might be a little difficult and we don't want to sacrifice quality. Okay, I will reach out to my team and see what's going on. So with all of these, it just softens a little bit and gives a little bit more meaning. Additionally, you might say, for example, instead of, can you meet tomorrow for a meeting? I was wondering if you could meet tomorrow for a meeting. Now, if you look at this one in particular, I don't even need to put a question mark, because if I say I was wondering, I'm telling you that I was wondering. Okay, I might say, would it be possible to meet tomorrow afternoon for a meeting? So I can do indirect questions, and if you need some more further help with this, I would recommend Googling the first phrases for indirect questions. But we see these a lot, and when you use an indirect question, you're using the same structure as a sentence, the same word order with subject and verb as a sentence, but it's just a nicer way to put it. It kind of softens it a little bit. So if I have to request something, this would be a nice way to do it. Okay, a couple of other things too, and these are cultural things that I would mention in terms of doing business in the US and Canada, is when you have to give any kind of negative feedback, I would stray away, meaning stay away from doing that on email. I would, or make sure that it's pretty soft. So when we talk about being concise and we talk about not using a lot of words, that's not when you're giving negative feedback. If you give negative feedback first, I would try and do it over the phone, or that's a possibility, or saying no to something. But if you're going to say no or give negative feedback over email, that's the time that you're going to add a little bit more. You're going to explain, you're going to soften it for the customer. You're going to start with something really social when you start your email. And so you want to be careful with that. That's something that a lot of times we forget because we're so direct culturally, but we're not direct about giving feedback like that as harshly. So you want to make sure that if you have to say no, that's when you spend a little bit more time. And then I might follow up, like, would this meet with your approval? We are going to have to move the deadline a little bit. Would that meet with your approval? And then I've softened it, okay? Okay, some useful phrases. We don't want to use the same phrases. I've said this through all of our videos today, so we have to give you a bunch of phrases so that you can vary and you can really find your own personality with this. So I'm going to go through and just explain how I use them, and also pay attention, please, to the pronunciation. One thing I'd like to mention, as I mentioned pronunciation and how important that is, yes, not for the emails, but in general, because you've used these once, now you're kind of responsible for them. What I do when I'm learning another language, which I'm often doing, I'll go into Google Voice, I'll type in, I'll go into Google Translate, I'll type in the word and I ignore the translation, and then I just push the audio button so I can hear it. So if I'm like, oh, I cannot get the pronunciation on this, I listen to it response, and then I say it response. If you'd like to go a step further, what you can do is push play on Google, listen to it, and then record yourself on your cell phone. And then from there, you can listen to your recording and compare it to Google. And am I saying this correctly? Just if you're trying to prepare for a meeting after emailing a client, always a good idea. Okay, but let's get down to the phrases here, and we can go through them together. In response to. In response to your request for services, the following are our goals, or the following are our goals for your client. As per your request, meaning according to what you asked me for. Okay, as per your request, I am sending you all of your financial documents. Please take into consideration, means like I'd like you to think about this. Please take into consideration that the last week to sign up for services is coming up very shortly. Keep in mind that these are very, very similar. It's like a nice way to say, I need you to know this information. I need you to apply this rule. Given that, very similar to Spanish, given that it has been a very successful year, I'd like to thank you for your participation in our program. In light of our recent conversation, okay, these are very similar. As per your request, as per our conversation, in light of our recent conversation. In light of is like saying, I am referring back to this other thing. According to our previous conversation, again, in the same line, in reference to your question. So if I don't want to say the same thing each and every email, I have now at least 3 ways to say it, and attach you'll find. So I don't have to say your document is attached to this email. Attached you'll find your newest invoice. Please let me know if you have any questions. And grammar for progress. Big key in our success is using our grammar flawlessly. This is really, really important. So this is something that can tend to go wrong. A lot of times it's very confusing. What verb am I using with which preposition? And that is something that does get complicated. So what I recommend is twofold. Make sure that you're always grammar checking, and then please use these lists. If you're ever not sure what preposition goes after, and some of them might take more than one preposition, and so you have to go back and make sure which meaning do I want to use. But really pay attention to that. It's super important, and it does give a nicer impression of your writing and your work. A little bit more there. And then I wanted to point out this resource. Right here, there are a lot of different things that you can use in terms of how to introduce yourself as a manager, some of the basics and the wording that you might want to use. And it also goes over some of the cultural concepts, all of these resources. So I really hope if you have the chance to check them out, you will. I hope you've made good use of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that you feel ready to get out there and start emailing. Have a lovely day, and thank you for joining.